All right, welcome everybody to another social emotional workshop. Today we are with CARE of Southeastern Michigan, and we are going to be talking about effects of the use of alcohol. Welcome back, Joe and Theresa. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, the truth behind alcohol. You see Rebecca Asney, she was also a community health educator. That's not me, of course, but she put together this PowerPoint. So when we talk to kids, some kids don't even know alcohol is a drug, just because it's so prevalent in our world, in our society, that it's a liquid, that everybody drinks it, so they don't think it's a drug. But the definition of a drug is any chemical substance, except food, that causes mental, emotional, or behavioral change in the user. So we always express or detail that it's anything that changes the way you think, feel, or act. And when I do this for youth in high schools and middle schools, I talk about, it says except food, but can food change the way you think, feel, or act? And all the teenagers are like, yes, they sure can. And I'm like, what kinds of food? Well, when you eat junk food, it can kind of make you kind of dragging. Sugar kind of picks you up. Caffeine, right? Gets you aware, and a stimulant. So, but food is a necessity, so they don't categorize it as a drug, but it does change the way we think, feel, and act. Some foods. So we asked some teens on the reason why an adolescent would drink, and they came up with these reasons here: to loosen up, negative self-image. So the alcohol kind of lowers their inhibitions, you know, they feel a little braver, they can talk to girls maybe, or girls be more confident when they're under the influence. They're just bored. Peer pressure is big on drinking, right? Everybody at the party's drinking. Some even admitted that they do it for self-medication, as in they, there's two things: to use a drug or alcohol to feel good, or to feel better. To feel good means I use it just because it feels good. To feel better means that I'm in pain, either emotional or physical, and I drink it to feel better than I usually do. So those are those two dichotomies: to feel good or to feel better. Some are just curious. They see it all over our world, our society, and they're just curious what it would be like to be drunk. They see adults doing it. So then we asked kids why, the reasons they don't drink. And of course, they came up with some very good ones. You know, they don't want to be sick, it's fattening. You know, they're focused on their athletics. They don't want to look dumb. They like their hobbies. And they have some people making unsafe choices, so they see some of the errors and dangers of drinking. And some youth say it's illegal. I can't drink till I'm 21. I wish that one was more prevalent with the reasons to not drink. Although the other ones are pretty factual and pretty important too. Any reason not to drink is a good reason not to drink. So we have a problem with our advertising, right? What's the goal of advertising today? And you can see some of these advertisements here. Charisma. You can't buy it, you can't make it, and you sure can't fake it. So alcohol is the way to go, right? So it's all the bling bling, it's all the bandwagon, everybody's doing it, have fun, socialize. So, you know, watching a football game or sports, alcohol is embedded into the fabric of our nation. Cultural celebrations, holidays, weddings, any special event, it is everywhere. But the true goal here of advertising, this is the truth in advertising, which would be, they should advertise, right? Vomiting is just the start. Or 15 more calories than a burger from McDonald's. Nobody wants to advertise that way because then people won't buy their product. So we need to look at the facts and the truth of alcohol. So some of the realities of being drunk or intoxicated, the more professional term, poor decision-making, inappropriate risky behavior, aggression and violence, dangerous, putting yourself in dangerous situations that you wouldn't normally put yourself in. And if we look into the future, how it hurts our normal brain development, contributing to learning problems, risk of having an alcohol use disorder, because it is genetic and there is a predisposition to addiction. And if you start experimenting with alcohol, that click that this is the missing piece of my life. So alcohol is also correlated with several forms of cancer, liver disease. So there's a lot of realities that long-term alcohol use is very dangerous. Also, underage drinking. You see that 4,358 young people under the age 21 die every year in car accidents, homicides, suicides, alcohol poisoning, other fatal falls, burns, drowning. They say drunk driving is not the only thing to worry about, because people have died from drunk walking, which means they wander into the street and get hit by a car or a bus. They fall down a flight of stairs. So drunk walking is just is dangerous. Actually, there's this author I was reading with the number of the population and how many people drive and how many people don't drive. They're saying there's just as much drunk walking accidents as drunk driving accidents, comparing. So we do this in the high schools and middle schools, and we play the fact or myth. And that's the way this PowerPoint is set up. So fact or myth: it is impossible to overdose on alcohol. And of course, that is a myth. There is alcohol poisoning, is a various thing to think about. It affects our breathing, our heart rate, causes seizures, loss of consciousness. So the blood alcohol content, the higher the blood alcohol content gets in your blood, the more effects it has on our breathing and our heart rate and our brain functioning. Alcohol is a stimulant. It speeds up your body functioning. And I always get the high schoolers on this one, because alcohol is not a stimulant. That's a myth. I tell the youth that it kind of looks like a stimulant, because when you first start drinking maybe 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages, you kind of lower your inhibitions. You kind of get brave, right? You get kind of hyped up. You want to fight with everybody. You're kind of, so it seems like it's a stimulant where it's making you braver and tougher, but it actually is a depressant. Alcohol assaults the brain. It's the most abused mind-altering drug, and alcohol is a depressant. It makes you think, speak, move slower. So it actually depresses the central nervous system, which the first few, maybe it hypes you up, but you have a few more, and now your head's down, your body's slower, and your heart rate is slower, your respiration. So as the blood alcohol content goes up, from 0.4, 0.04 to 0.06 to 0.08. Once it goes up into the 0.10 and 0.15, the higher it goes, the slower your body is moving and processing. I talked to our peer recovery coaches that work in the ER. So some blood alcohol, as in 0.08, you're drunk driving, right? So you'll get a ticket for driving under the influence of alcohol. You go higher than that, 1.15 and the 0.2s, you are very drunk. So 0.25, they actually can like do surgery on you. It's called, oh shoot, I forgot the medical term for it. But they can actually like do surgery on you. 0.3 up to 0.4, you're probably in a coma. But I talked to the peer recovery coaches, and they're talking about people who coming in from an arrest or an accident that were up into the high 0.35, 0.38, 0.4. And I asked them, are they still like cognizant? Are they still, oh yeah, they're talking, having a conversation. And that's that tolerance that that person could get to that high levels of blood alcohol content and still be functioning in some sort of way. That was scary. So alcohol can impact your senses, and that is a fact because it does assault the brain. It slows down the brain. It slows our senses, our vision. Of course, when you talk about seeing double and seeing blurred vision, your words start getting slurred, decrease in hearing. I don't know if you've had conversations with people intoxicated that they talk really loud because they can't hear themselves talk. They even have trouble smelling and tasting. So it does impact our senses. And drinking can impact your self-control, ability to plan, think, and make decisions. And of course, that is a fact. Now, I always have some youth tell me that they know people who drink and they're in control and they think and they're smart and they make decisions. And I always kind of agree with them that some people can be intoxicated and be functioning. But that is somebody who has that tolerance to drink and take that much alcohol intake. And also, that is an exception. Most people who drink are not in control and do make mistakes and get hurt and have those that impact on the brain functioning. So the reality there, the prefrontal cortex, that is our self-control that tells everything else to be careful, slow down, shut up, be cool. But once alcohol is in our brain, it kind of clouds that prefrontal cortex, that self-control. So we'll do some really silly things under the influence of alcohol. At a party, you might jump on the table, take your clothes off, and sing the Star Spangled Banner. Because your prefrontal cortex didn't say, Joe, don't do that. It's going to be embarrassing. They're all going to talk about you tomorrow, because that part of my brain is shut off. No, I really didn't do that. I don't do that, but just using it as a hypothetical. Our planning and processing and ideas and decision-making, they're all affected by that prefrontal cortex that is the executive center that is in control of all of those. And alcohol over long periods of time could damage that prefrontal cortex forever, as in that it's so much damage that it won't recover into, that healthy, independent form. Alcohol does not affect memory. And of course, that is a myth, because we do have trouble remembering something. And if you know anybody who drinks, I know some people who drink, and every time I see them, we're at a social event and they're drinking, they just tell me the same things over and over, the same stories over and over. I don't know if they're just bragging or if they just don't remember. They just told me that story a half hour ago. And interesting enough, it says this can happen after just 1 or 2 drinks. Could impact some of that remembering. Also, you can experience a blackout. The difference between blackout and pass out. Passing out is you passed out, you're unconscious, you're sleeping, your eyes are closed, and you're passed out. But a blackout is not being able to remember an entire event. Like, how did I get home last night? And you're fully functioning, having a great time, talking, sharing stories, living your life, but the next day you don't remember any of it because your brain actually went into blackout. In my younger years, I was with a friend who was an excessive drinker, and we were hanging out, and he was doing really stupid things, incredibly stupid. It was annoying the heck out of me. And he would get in my face and kind of wanted to kind of roughhouse kind of thing. And I would just take my fist and I'd punch him in the chest, in the sternum. And he'd do it again, and I'd punch him in the chest. He'd do it again. And this was happening throughout the night. So we both went to sleep, woke up the next day, and he's telling me in the morning, he goes, man, why does my chest hurt? So I don't know what happened last night. My chest really hurts. And I told him, you were being a jerk. I couldn't believe it, man. You wouldn't leave me alone. I kept hitting you in the chest. He didn't remember any of it. Even that pain of me punching him in the chest. Alcohol is legal, so it must be safe. And of course, that is a myth, just like they say that marijuana is natural and it must be safe. And now it's natural and legal. But on the topic of alcohol, it's legal for people 21 and over, that is. So it must be fine. Once I become 21, I'm good. And that is a myth, of course, because it is a drug. It affects the brain, which is pretty important. And the brain's not fully developed until you're 25 years old. That prefrontal cortex isn't hardwired until you're 25 years old. So the earlier you use any drug, including alcohol, the more detriment, the more effect it'll have on addiction and changing the structure and the function of that brain. So it does slow down that process. Alcohol is literally a toxin, a poison, ethanol. So ethanol, we drink ethanol and our body needs to get it out of our body. We need to get it out because it is a toxin. And we'll get a little deeper into that in a moment. Excessive underage drinking, of course, has those health problems. There's more suicide attempts when people are intoxicated. Being brave enough to go through with that suicide. Alcohol abuse and dependency, 6 times more likely if you drink before age 15. I mean, that is huge, 6 times more likely if you start using early. Police involvement with drunk driving, vandalism, property damage, you know, that's just changing those, affecting your decision-making, right? Lowering your inhibitions and just making silly, unhealthy decisions. It'd be cool to go around and smash out mailboxes. No, that would be pretty silly and against the law, and you'll probably get hurt or arrested. And they don't have that cognition to process that when they're drunk. Academic problems, death, injury, violence, assault, all escalate when somebody is intoxicated. So the amount of liquid in your glass, can, or bottle is the same as the amount of alcohol in your drink, which is a little odd, but that is a myth because it doesn't matter how big your glass is or the can or bottle, different types of alcohol have different amounts of alcohol content in them. Let's look at a 12-ounce beer. Most beers are probably 5% alcohol in them. You know, some imported beers might be, 6 or 7 or 8, some of the home brews and stuff that can do it. But an average domestic beer, 12 ounces, has about 5% of alcohol. A malt liquor, you can see a little higher alcohol level. Table wine, 12% alcohol. And then the distilled spirits here, you can see 40% alcohol. And some of them a little higher depending on the proof of that alcohol, 80 proof, 90 proof. But what they're saying in this is a drink is a drink is a drink. These are all standard sized drinks. 12 ounces of beer has the same amount of alcohol as 8 ounces of malt liquor, has the same amount of alcohol as 5 ounces of wine. It has the same amount of alcohol as 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits. So it doesn't matter which type of alcohol, these are all standard drinks. And if you had one standard rock glass, like an 8-ounce glass, and you had 3 shots of alcohol in there, and then some Coca-Cola to fill it up, now you have 3 standard drinks in that one glass. So if you drank that one glass, you would have to, your liver has to detoxify 3 standard drinks. Let me see something here. I don't know when they get to the liver. So I'll share that right now, that our liver can detoxify 1 ounce of alcohol per hour. 1 ounce. So figure that 1 ounce of distilled spirits, 1 hour, 5 ounces of wine, 1 hour, 12 ounces of beer, 1 hour. So they're all the same amount of alcohol. So one standard drink will take 1 hour to detoxify. That alcohol is ethanol. Ethanol is the fermentation of the grain, whether it's corn or it ferments, the sugars eat and ferment. So ethanol is alcohol, really. And it has a chemical called let me see if I can pronounce this, acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is toxic. Once it gets in our liver, enzymes in our liver have to break that acetaldehyde down into its non-toxic form, which is acetate. So once we ingest that, our liver needs to get to town and detoxify that, and it takes 1 hour per standardized drink. So for women, 4 or more drinks in 2 hours, or 5 or more drinks for men, is considered binge drinking. So you figure 4 drinks in one kind of event is binge drinking. And that is a fact. Some excessive alcohol use includes 4 or more drinks consumed on any one occasion in that couple hours, and 5 for men. Also, heavy drinking is classified as 8 or more drinks per week, or 15 or more drinks per week for men. So that's interesting. 8 hours per week. So that could be 1 a day. And then maybe one day you had 2 drinks. So, 8 drinks in 7 days. That doesn't seem like a lot. Although If you do this every week, that's considered heavy drinking. That every day, and on some days a couple more, that you are drinking. So it creates that pattern of drinking. And the, what's it called, when you can drink more, I forgot the term. I can drink 3 drinks and not be.
Tolerance?
Tolerance, thank you, Theresa. Yes, so you're continuously drinking every day, builds your tolerance, and those drinks go up and up and up, and your tolerance increases, which adds to more of the risk of addiction, as well as some other challenges, health challenges, like forms of cancer and cirrhosis of the liver and things like that. And any alcohol used by pregnant women is a no-no because of the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, where alcohol is a, Theresa, help me with that word,
Teratogen.
teratogen. Yeah, alcohol is a teratogen, and a teratogen is a substance or a liquid that literally destroys forming cells. So as a cell is forming, alcohol will destroy it, and it would be gone and killed and won't develop. So any prenatal exposure to alcohol will destroy the central nervous system, as well as the eyes and what other senses, all the neurons that are being developed in that brain in that child's body. Any alcohol used under the age of 21 is at a higher risk of addiction and errors of, getting in trouble and doing unhealthy and silly, dangerous things. If you only have 1 drink, you're fine to drive. Fact or myth? Teenagers have a little trouble answering this one. And of course,
Men I've talked to have thought that they have trouble with this.
oh yeah, like grown men and women. I know some people. Theresa?
Sorry, I'm just saying men. I
You
hear
know, just
men
men.
say this. I can drink and I can have a drink and I drive even better. Or they even say that about marijuana,
You know, that is interesting because I do teach DOT training, Department of Transportation, drug-free workplace. And we learn about the blood alcohol content and how it affects our driving. And that I had friends who say, I drive better when I'm drunk. Literally, they say, I drive better when I'm drunk, right? They're more aware and in a way, what I learned in some of my education was they may drive straighter, as in they may be very aware and stay in between those white lines, because alcohol affects your peripheral vision, which means that you get tunnel vision. So you're focused on what's right in front of you. And of course, you're drunk or intoxicated in some form. So you're focused 100% on staying in between those lines, and you may be able to stay in between those lines at lower blood alcohol content. But your peripheral vision is now impaired. So on top of the slower motor movements and reaction time driving, now your peripheral vision is down. So now something coming off to the flank or right or left flank coming in front of you, you can't see until it gets into your tunnel vision, which now extra slows down your reaction time. Your reaction time is slowed down from the slowing of the brain and the being intoxicated, and not seeing that thing until it gets into your tunnel vision. So that was a new one for me, of the peripheral vision being impaired. Yeah, you can drive straight, but your peripheral is out. And of course, that is a myth. 1 drink could affect you. It doesn't matter what type of alcohol. I just explained a drink is a drink is a drink. And that will determine how intoxicated you are and how much it affects our body and our brain. Okay, we'll move on. An adult over 21 years old has to be pulled over with a blood alcohol of 0.08 or above to face legal charges. Now this one is interesting because I always thought it was 0.08, which is a DUI. But Rebecca, who did the research on this, says that is a myth because you can still get a ticket of operating while visibly impaired. So if you were swerving and not driving safely, you can get a ticket, OWVI, operating while visibly impaired. There's no minimum blood alcohol level to qualify for this charge. I did not know that. I thought 0.08 or under 0.08, I'm fine. Not true. OWI, this was known as the DUI, a situation where the influence of drugs or alcohol has seriously impacted your ability to operate the vehicle. Some cases, first offenses for both operating while visibly impaired and operating while intoxicated. And you can see those 93 days in jail, 360 hours of community service, $300 fine, 90 days in jail, 4 points on your driver's license, $500 driver responsibility fine. Whoa, driver responsibility fine. I wonder if there's parent or classes. I think you got to take some driving safety classes. Or operating while intoxicated, that is $100 to $500 fine, 100 days suspended license, 6 points on your driver's license, $1,000 driver responsibility fine. This is an interesting question because when somebody is drunk, they're always saying, feed them, smack them, cold shower. So can you speed up sobriety by eating, showering, drinking coffee? And that is a myth. Just like I explained with the liver, that nothing but time is going to sober you up. The liver has to detoxify that alcohol. So a cold shower, a smack in the face, some coffee might get you more aware and awake, but you're still going to blow if you blow a big blood alcohol content, because that alcohol is still in your body. Now you can sweat it out faster if you have them run up and down the street and sweat it all out, because our body detoxifies alcohol and releases alcohol through our sweat, through our breath. When we're talking, alcohol is coming out of our breath. Alcohol is coming out of our urine, of course. When we're drinking, we're urinating and releasing alcohol. Our sweat, our breath, our body is all releasing alcohol. So if you are moving more, maybe you're releasing more, but it does nothing but time is going to sober you up. Somebody drunk that takes a cold shower cannot drive home. Well, they could drive home, but if they get pulled over, they're probably still going to blow the legal limit of alcohol. So our livers here, the liver protects our body from infection and disease and viruses and poisons. Now our liver can actually get stronger. Some livers release these enzymes to break down the acetaldehyde, that toxic thing in our alcohol. And some of them can do it really well, process it down to detoxify it, and that's when the tolerance goes. So they can drink more and more and not really be affected by it. Although some livers, they will wear down quite quickly. So the more alcohol, the more harder it's working. And then that's where cirrhosis of the liver starts happening, and the liver is now diseased, poisoned, and gets dry and wrinkly, and now it's not processing that alcohol. Oh, there's that 1 full hour to detoxify 1 standard drink. So create the life you want to live, setting goals. And this is kind of like when you hear Theresa and I present any tool, parenting tool or drug education, there's always risk factors, which are things that kind of we're faced with that kind of heightens the risk of us using drugs or alcohol. And then there's protective factors. Those are the tools that will minimize and combat the risk factors. So when we create the life we want by setting goals, that is a protective factor. Because when we have goals in our lives, if somebody says, hey, you want to go to a party, there's going to be alcohol there, we're going to have a ball. And if you have a goal of passing the test tomorrow, or, waking up early and getting ready for practice and honing your skill, you're going to say, no, tonight's a bad night. No, I can't do it because I have a goal. So when we have goals, we filter the decisions that are in front of us to meet those goals. But if if a youth didn't have a goal, they're like, hey, let's go to this party. It's awesome, man. I know this place that, they're going to have a keg and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, got nothing better to do. Sounds like a ball. Because if I don't have goals, I don't have any decisions really to make. Another one is to know and avoid your triggers, which means if you know things that get you angry, if you know that these substances make you feel good, we have to identify and avoid places that might put us in a bad spot or in a place that we don't have the tools to combat peer pressure. So we really need to avoid. I do this one exercise about peer pressure. Clothespin, the wooden clothespins that you can pinch together up and down. And I give all the youth a clothespin and I have them hold it out horizontal out from their shoulder, extend their arm. And I have them open and close the clothespin as fast and as many times as they can in 1 minute. So they all do it and it's all cool. And they did 80, 90, 100, whatever they do. And then when I tell them to stop and they share their number, I said, okay, so now I want you to hold the clothespin open with your arm extended, just like you were for that first minute, and see who could hold it open the longest. And their wrists and their shoulders and their elbows, everything's getting sore. And I tried to talk them into quitting. I said, come on, you're not going to win. I want to see who can last the longest. You're not going to win. Come on. You're hurting. You're shaking, man. You're going to hurt yourself. Just quit. Just stop. And I try to pressure them into quitting the activity. And some quit really fast. Some quit with a little bit of struggle. Some quit after my antagonizing them. And some will do anything they can to win that activity, no matter how hard it is. So after we process, I talk about peer pressure, about short-term peer pressure and long-term peer pressure. Short-term peer pressure, sure, it's easy to flick that the clothespin up and down 100 times or to hold it for a little bit. It's easy to say no once in a while if I'm at a party and somebody offers me an alcoholic beverage. No. Now that's short-term peer pressure. It's kind of easy if you have a plan. But long-term peer pressure is if you hang out in those environments, the longer and longer you hang out, the harder it is to say no. Because after a while, you'll be like, well, I've been coming here for a year and everybody's drinking and everybody seems fine and nobody's gotten hurt, so you kind of, all right, let me try one. So avoiding those places could help you with that peer pressure, because long-term peer pressure wears people down. Plan to handle urges. So what are you going to do when you want to drink or use? You know, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? You know, what kind of coping skills do you have? Knowing your no means you're going to role play it. No, I said no. Don't ask me again. You know, being assertive and knowing that you have the right to stay drug and alcohol free. You don't have to join the bandwagon. And fulfilling your interests and having strong, healthy relationships are all things that will prevent a youth or an adult to stay off of alcohol, or if they're using alcohol to help them quit using alcohol. Oh, look at that, a little early there. So, would anybody like to share any comments, interests?
Well, I was just going to say one thing right there. Stay there for a second. Those are all protective factors. But the strongest or the number one protective factor that keeps kids from engaging in unhealthy behaviors is their relationship with their parents. And that's why we consider parenting classes to be prevention, drug prevention, or unhealthy risks, activities prevention. Because then teenagers don't, what do they call that word? They don't abstain from those unhealthy behaviors because they think they're going to get in trouble, which is what everybody thinks. I have to scare them into not doing that stuff. That doesn't work, as well as I don't want to let my parents down, because you have a good relationship with them and you communicate with them and you problem solve with them when problems come up, and they encourage you through challenges that you have in school, in your life, and you've created such a bond that when it comes to stuff like this, drinking or any kind of having sex too early or anything that would be considered unsafe for a young person, you're less likely to do it when you have a strong relationship with your parents. And your parents draw a firm line in the sand and say, no, it's not acceptable. It's not a rite of passage. You don't get to drink until you're 21. You don't get to use marijuana until you're 21. You don't get to smoke until you're 18. So those kinds of things, even though parents think that those are really not that strong of a deterrent for teenagers, actually it really is. It's one of the most strongest deterrents that there are. I just wanted to add that for my program.
Yes, very true. Thank you, Theresa. And that no use rule, being that so-called bad guy, which you're really not being the bad guy, you are loving and concerned, and having that no use rule. Your kid might hate you for it, but actually they're glad for it. They're glad that somebody's watching out for them. As parents that don't have that perception of harm of drugs and alcohol, or that it's a rite of passage where everybody's doing it, all teenagers drink, that is going to kind of make that child feel, oh, all right, well, if nobody cares, I guess I will do it then. So being that parent that has that assertive, you will not use drugs or alcohol in our house, our values. And they'll hate it, but inside, or maybe even unconsciously, they're going to say, Mom loves me. Thank you for that, Theresa.
You're welcome, Joe.
All right, folks. I do have a very interesting educational video that is 5 minutes long. If you want to hang out and watch that. I was watching this one on marijuana, but this one is, oh, that's not it. Uh-oh.
Skip that ad.
I can't skip it. It won't let me skip it, Teresa.
Yeah, it does say that. Well, okay.
No,
Never mind.
it's, well, maybe, oh, it is blocking. My video is blocking it, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, how does alcohol make us drunk? 5 minutes.
Did you share sound?
Than a few carbon atoms is responsible for drunkenness. Often simply referred to as alcohol, ethanol is the active ingredient in alcoholic beverages. Its simplicity helps it sneak across membranes and nestle into many different nooks, producing a wide range of effects compared to other, clunkier molecules. So how exactly does it cause drunkenness? And why does it have dramatically different effects on different people? To answer these questions, we'll need to follow alcohol on its journey through the body. Alcohol lands in the stomach and is absorbed into the blood through the digestive tract, especially the small intestine. The contents of the stomach impact alcohol's ability to get into the blood because after eating, the pyloric sphincter, which separates the stomach from the small intestine, closes. So the level of alcohol that reaches the blood after a big meal might only be a quarter that from the same drink on an empty stomach. From the blood, alcohol goes to the organs, especially those that get the most blood flow, the liver and the brain. It hits the liver first, and enzymes in the liver break down the alcohol molecule in 2 steps. First, an enzyme called ADH turns alcohol into acetaldehyde, which is toxic. Then, an enzyme called ALDH converts the toxic acetaldehyde to non-toxic acetate. As the blood circulates, the liver eliminates alcohol continuously, but this first pass of elimination determines how much alcohol reaches the brain and other organs. Brain sensitivity is responsible for the emotional, cognitive, and behavioral effects of alcohol, otherwise known as drunkenness. Alcohol turns up the brain's primary brake, the neurotransmitter GABA, and turns down its primary gas, the neurotransmitter glutamate. This makes neurons much less communicative, and users feel relaxed at moderate doses, fall asleep at higher doses, and can impede the brain activity necessary for survival at toxic doses. Alcohol also stimulates a small group of neurons that extends from the midbrain to the nucleus accumbens, a region important for motivation. Like all addictive drugs, it prompts a squirt of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, which gives users a surge of pleasure. Alcohol also causes some neurons to synthesize and release endorphins. Endorphins help us to calm down in response to stress or danger. Elevated levels of endorphins contribute to the euphoria and relaxation associated with alcohol consumption. Finally, as the liver's breakdown of alcohol outpaces the brain's absorption, drunkenness fades away. Individual differences at any point in this journey can cause people to act more or less drunk. For example, a man and a woman who weigh the same and drink the same amount during an identical meal will still have different blood alcohol concentrations, or BACs. This is because women tend to have less blood. Women generally have a higher percentage of fat, which requires less blood than muscle. A smaller blood volume carrying the same amount of alcohol means the concentration will be higher for women. Genetic differences in the liver's alcohol processing enzymes also influence BAC, and regular drinking can increase production of these enzymes, contributing to tolerance. On the other hand, those who drink excessively for a long time may develop liver damage, which has the opposite effect. Meanwhile, genetic differences in dopamine, GABA, and endorphin transmission may contribute to risk for developing an alcohol use disorder. Those with naturally low endorphin or dopamine levels may self-medicate through drinking. Some people have a higher risk for excessive drinking due to a sensitive endorphin response that increases the pleasurable effects of alcohol. Others have a variation in GABA transmission that makes them especially sensitive to the sedative effects of alcohol, which decreases their risk of developing disordered drinking. Meanwhile, the brain adapts to chronic alcohol consumption by reducing GABA, dopamine, and endorphin transmission, and enhancing glutamate activity. This means regular drinkers tend to be anxious, have trouble sleeping, and experience less pleasure. These structural and functional changes can lead to disordered use when drinking feels normal, but not drinking is uncomfortable, establishing a vicious cycle. So both genetics and previous experience impact how a person experiences alcohol, which means that some people are more prone to certain patterns of drinking than others, and a history of consumption leads to neural and behavioral changes. Similar to alcohol, how someone experiences marijuana depends on a number of factors, including, for example, genetics.
I just love that video. Very, very telling on how that brain processes alcohol. I'm the second part of that guy where if I drink alcohol, I can't become addicted to it, because when I drink alcohol, it puts me in such a sleepy state. My body kind of shuts down from it. You know, so other people drink alcohol and it's like bang, it stimulates and opens up a lot of feel-good endorphins. But I drink alcohol and it's doesn't feel good. Just like our body, when our body, we vomit, that's our body saying, hey, you're gonna die. You know, we gotta get this alcohol out of here. So vomiting is that survival mechanism to tell your body that you have too much alcohol content in you. But I know people who vomit and then say, cool, I can drink some more. After they vomit, they just go right back to drinking. Instead of saying, listening to our body to say, I vomited because I would have died if my body didn't dispel all of that. All right, folks, that is our lesson for today.
All right, everybody. We will see you on Thursday. Thursday, we are doing addiction.
Is it the family sculpt, Theresa? Addiction in the
yeah.
family?
The family sculpt, yeah, how to talk about addiction.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Joe, Theresa. Everybody have a great day, rest of your day.
Yep, you guys too.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.